our first witness will be Executive Director Phil Richter of the Ohio Elections Commission. Welcome, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Chairman Stewart and members of the House Finance Committee, I appreciate the opportunity to come here and address the commission today, or the committee today, on behalf of the Ohio Elections Commission. The commission has operated as an independent agency for almost 30 years now, since January 1 of 1996. It is comprised of 7 members, 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans, and 1 person who is unaffiliated. And as well, there are 3 now alternate members that the commission has available to it. The commission staff, along with myself, is 1 full-time assistant and 1 part-time assistant that essentially tries to do the work of the commission, and I think it does so very efficiently and effectively. I'm speaking on behalf of the budget today because while this budget does provide the commission with, I think, a substantial increase, it will allow the commission to cover the expenses. We have run into some expenses over the last couple of years that were unexpected in terms of challenges to the statutory scheme of the state of Ohio, for which the commission is obligated to defend, and the Attorney General's office has been obligated to get outside counsel that the commission must pay for. In addition, I look forward to updating the commission's record keeping by using a more electronic version that the commission has not previously had available to it. In addition, the commission's total budget, about 80% is comprised of payroll. Historically, the commission has operated, I think, very efficiently with the monies provided by the General Assembly and upon recommendation from the Office of Budget Management. And so I think the commission does a very good job of dealing effectively and efficiently with the funds provided to it. You all have my testimony. I don't want to bore you with going over anything else there, and so I'll just open myself up to questions if there are any other questions that the committee may have. Thank you very much for this opportunity to address the commission, or the committee.
Member questions. Representative Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Richter, Director Richter. I have a couple of questions. One is the commission members themselves. This is basically a quasi-judicial system. But it appears, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
That some members may not understand the boundaries of the law when they are acting as commissioners. How well schooled are they when they are sitting in that position? In other words, do you train them? Do you tell them where the boundaries are, et cetera?
I do my, Chairman Stewart, Representative Schmidt, I do my best to pass along information to the commission members concerning what the statutes are. Before every meeting, I give them an outline of what's to be addressed that day. That provides the complainants, the response, the issues that are pending before it, and the application of the law. And I certainly address with them, I believe, what is the appropriate approach to take on any issue that's presented to the commission. Yes, there are some commission members that I think do a lengthy approach toward reviewing materials and the information that I give them prior to a commission meeting and go into great detail. I engage in conversation with them all the time as it relates to what statutory provisions are and how they could apply. So I feel like, currently there's only one other, no, I think there are 2 attorneys on the commission. And so I do my best to educate all of the commission members, even the attorneys, as to how I believe campaign finance law should be applied and how it applies to each case.
Follow up.
Through the chair. Thank you. Thank you, sir. It appears, sir, that some of the commission members may not understand completely their role, and they may be looking at situations that legally would take you in a different direction. My concern is that the commission members, once they are appointed, don't have some sort of an education process that they would go through before they sit to make a decision that affects people.
Chairman Stewart, Representative Schmidt, I think it's fair to say, and I appreciate your question, don't get me wrong, I think it's fair to say that the commission members generally have an understanding of the political arena, considering that the partisan members are all approved by the general, or their names are forwarded to the governor by the General Assembly. And so they have an understanding of how the system works and how it properly should be applied. Certainly, there can always be questions, I think, and reasonable questions as to the approach the commission members take. But I feel like I do my best to give them the information that they need to understand what the issues are and make a proper statutory decision.
Follow up.
Oh, thank you, sir. In your testimony, or on the website, I should say, you say that the OEC process is expedited. And yet, there are multiple committees over the last several years who have been required to attend hearings, and that the decisions go into a year, 2 years, delay before a decision is rendered. Sir, that costs people time. It also costs people money. And when you say it's an expedited process, I know that in a court of law, they wouldn't tolerate that kind of lengthy time to hear a case and then to render a decision. And yet the OEC has not on one occasion, but on very many occasions, taken what I think is way too long of a time to hear a case and to render a decision.
And I think, Chairman Stewart, Representative Schmidt, your concerns are certainly fair, and I understand it considering what you've gone through and as well as what Chairman Stewart is currently going through.
Buckle up.
I understand. But part of the reason why it took that long was the first, obviously you're aware, there's a series of cases that were all brought by one particular gentleman that all essentially involved the same circumstances. And the first case that the commission decided involving then candidate Alan Freeman was appealed. And once it started in the court system, the appeal process, there was the possibility that the commission's decision in that case, which directly impacted yours and directly impacts the status of your case, if the court decision had been different, it would have changed our approach on dealing with your case. And so I couldn't bring your case forward. I couldn't bring your case forward or the other ones that are pending as it relates to where it goes from there. The courts upheld the commission's decision all the way through the 10th District Court of Appeals. That took about 2 years for it to get through the court system. Then it was appealed to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court essentially rejected it, upholding the 10th District Court decision. Then I was able to go forward with your case, but I didn't want to start the case against Representative Stewart until your case was done.
Follow up.
I hate to disagree with you, sir, but my case was heard in tandem, and my case had nothing to do with the other case. We don't need to comment anymore, but the decisions that were rendered in the Freeman case happened during my case. Thank you.
Representative Sims.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director, for being here today. I was really excited, expecting to hear a little more about the Ohio Elections Commission, but I guess we can read the testimony. My question is really budgetary in nature. Just looking at your budget for 2025 to 2026, there looks to be about a 36% increase, and then 27, an additional 12%. Can you speak to what that increase is for?
I slightly did during my testimony, but part of it is the commission has been obligated to get outside counsel to defend it in certain matters that are pending in the court system. Then also we're planning on installing a new record retention system essentially for the commission. And then I guess the last thing is, and depending on how you want to approach it, it's certainly, I have a variety of people talking to me about it. I plan on retiring at some point during this biennium and bringing in a replacement for myself in the intervening period and having a certain carryover period, crossover period between the two of us. And so primarily with those things going forward, I'd say the primary basis for those amounts. The new electronic system will cost about $30,000 or $40,000 to install. Right at the moment, the outside counsel is looking to be around 40. There are two cases, one around $20,000 and one has just been recently increased up to around $50,000. And then bringing in someone at my level is going to have certain expenses with it, although I don't anticipate it being the entire time during the commission's biennial budget.
Follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So your current staffing is 2?
Chairman Stewart, Representative Sims, I apologize for not doing that before. Myself, I have one full-time assistant and one part-time assistant that works with me.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So your intent is to bring the additional person on in 2027?
Probably late in this, excuse me, Chairman Stewart, Representative James, late in this fiscal year and early on into the next fiscal year.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chair Davila.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Richter, good to see you this morning. Statistically, I'm interested in some more granular information than you have in your testimony. How many cases go to a probable cause finding, and then how many get to a final determination in an average election cycle, let's say?
We, through a particular year, we get approximately 500 to 700 cases filed with us by the boards of elections, and over the last couple of years, about 50 or so by the Secretary of State's office. And any more, we don't really use the probable cause panel system anymore. That was primarily in place when the commission was dealing with false statement cases, and that statute was declared unconstitutional in 2014. But the preliminary review stage is where we start the process. Generally speaking, we were able to deal with most cases there. And I'd say in a particular year, it's hard to say specifically from year to year in lining up the years, because there are some cases in 2024 that we've already carried over into this year. But I'd say we're probably dealing with 70 to 75 to 80% of the cases in a particular period by the time you get through the preliminary review. And for those cases, there are some cases that get sent along to hearing, and those obviously take a little more time for the commission to deal with.
I'm good, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Representative White.
Thank you, Chair Stewart. Thank you, Director. I guess I wanted to ask from your position, I know that there is federal case law and all kinds of rulings that have come down related to what many in the General Assembly and other elected offices have experienced, which is outright lying about themselves during the campaign by their opponents. And it seems to me that the role of the Elections Commission in being able to take action is in essence hampered because of some federal and court rulings. But is there anything we can do as a legislature to protect against false lies, other things that happen during campaigns? Because it's getting increasingly difficult with AI and all kinds of technology to help voters discern truth.
Chairman Stewart, Representative White, I believe that the commission dealt with some of those issues when it had the ability to deal with false statement cases. But once the statute was declared unconstitutional, the commission hasn't had an opportunity to act on those kind of circumstances and those kind of cases. Shortly after the decision was handed down in 2014 that declared the statute unconstitutional, I worked with a couple of attorneys who regularly work with the commission, both the Democratic and Republican side. And it was our respective belief that there was a way of reenacting a statute that could be enforceable primarily by taking out any kind of criminal penalties, but allowing the commission to go forward. But it's been talked about, but nothing has ever been moved forward into or through the General Assembly as it relates to that. You're certainly welcome to call me biased about it, but when I dealt with the commission on those kind of matters on a regular basis, I felt like the commission was very effective in trying to deal with those kind of circumstances. Unfortunately, beyond our control, the statute was declared unconstitutional. We haven't been able to act on those since. I'd love to work with anybody who was willing to try and bring something like that back to the General Assembly. I've maintained from all those years ago all the various things that the attorneys and I talked about in terms of the possibility of bringing back a statute that could be enforceable.
Follow up. Representative Ray.
It really depends on the circumstance. Chairman Stewart, Representative Way, it depends on the circumstances and how many are asked. And over the last couple of years, it's only been one, maybe two in a year. I think 1 year, and about 2 or 3 years ago, we had 4. When there's been a major change to campaign finance law, as there was in 1995, and back in, I think it was 1987. In the years after that, the commission, I think, approved 12 or 13 advisory opinions. And so that's the normal circumstance. I have yours. I'm working on it. And so I'm hopeful of getting it out, not by the end of February, but I think we have 2 meetings in March, but trying to get it out in March.
Follow up. Thank you, Director. We ran into this when I was a county commissioner, you'd have a department head who came in and said, well, I'm going to retire sometime this year and I'd like some more money in the budget to train my replacement. And then we'd ask, well, when are you going to retire? And they say, well, we'll see. And then it became the next year and the next year and the next year. I mean, before we would approve more money to train your replacement, how long do you anticipate you need that period to be?
If it was up to my wife, I would be doing it probably by the end of this year, but sometime early next year is when it will happen.
Okay. You know, Rep. Schmidt hit on it, and I'm going to try not to talk about specific cases, but I'm aware of a committee that is heading into year 4 of a hearing filed by somebody who lives 100 miles away who's never been a constituent. I've talked to a lot of practitioners who have appeared before the Ohio Elections Commission. I think the impression is pretty uniform. You know, the rules say you're supposed to follow the Ohio Rules of Evidence. The Commission does not. It says you're supposed to apply the Ohio Rules of Civil Procedure. The Commission does not. We have hearings that are dragging on years and years and years, costing people tens of thousands of dollars for civil violations with a $50 fine. We looked back at the roster of the Commission's meetings for the last 2024. There were 18 meetings, and 10 of them had a missing commissioner. And so part of the problem is we can't get a full commission to actually show up and do the job enough to get these cases processed in a timely amount of time. Do you really believe that this commission today, when you have cases dragging on years and years and years, no prosecution of former Speaker Householder, by the way, is this commission really working the way that we intended it to work when this was created?
Chairman Stewart, fair questions, don't get me wrong. But I feel like the commission does a reasonably good job of moving things forward. Unfortunately, I appreciate that you're how do I want to phrase it? You're not convinced as it relates to my decision as it relates to holding matters because of the decision in the Freeman case.
Well, it's not, Director, I'm sorry. It's not just holding matters. We can't get things scheduled in your commission. Well, the parties are all ready to go in March. Well, but we got 2 commissioners that have a hair appointment or have to, go to, something else. I mean, there's no communication to the litigants. You'll come down, you'll get notice that we started hearing at 10. You don't get started until noon. And then unbeknownst to the parties, attorneys who've been called in to do these cases for the entire day, well, we got a hard stop at 2:30. Nobody told the litigants. Nobody told the attorneys who are involved in the case. We are wasting people's time. I sit there for 2 hours watching people get hauled in from Cleveland, judges hauled in from Cincinnati to, flagellate themselves over being a day late on a finance report for a $25 fine. We've gotten rid of the false claims statute. Why not just send all these cases to court where they can be dealt with by a judge who knows the law? And if people feel this strongly about their case, let them bring it themselves. What would be wrong with that approach?
Well, I mean, I've often thought of that, Chair Stewart. I've often thought of that. And, if there was no commission, then you're essentially putting the matters back into the respective counties, and then you have essentially 88 different interpretations potentially on the law and 88 different applications across all the various county prosecutors.
If we have 88 different interpretations of Ohio Revised Code as it is, what makes election law so special that we can't have it dealt with at a local level?
I met with, and not to say that they wouldn't necessarily take it on, but I met with County Prosecutors Association, as it relates to the commission sending them certain things along. And let's just say they were a bit reluctant to deal with the commission sending them matters that primarily involved collections, I guess, as much as anything.
If our county prosecutors have made a determination that it's not a good use of taxpayer time to have months and years long hearings about a $25 fine and whether you put the right disclaimer on your lit piece, doesn't that suggest maybe it's not worth the commission's time either?
Well, Chair Stewart, with all due respect, I mean, I certainly appreciate Representative Schmidt's case, your case, et cetera, that have taken as long as they have. Certainly isn't something I'm proud of or that I would like to see. And I'd say, generally speaking, those are the rare incursions as it relates to the commission. The greatest majority of matters, especially when you're dealing with something of 1 day, 2 days late, 6 months late, whatever it is, those kind of matters are dealt with. We send out notice and they're dealt with almost immediately. There are matters that get sent over to hearing, and the hearings have to go down, are set off down the line and take some more time. But I feel like the commission deals with most matters on a fairly prompt basis. Makes educated decisions and tries to make consistent decisions so that there is a consistent application across the entire state of Ohio.
Representative Troy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your testimony, Director Richter. Personally, I have to say that all my experiences with your commission have been pleasant ones. I've been in front of you twice. twice as a plaintiff, not as a defendant, and successful twice in false statement cases, which obviously the courts have said you cannot follow up on that. But I think in follow up with Representative White's question, I mean, if you have met with some legal folks and you feel there's a way that legislatively we could put Humpty Dumpty back together again and somehow have some mechanism to police this stuff, because between Citizens United decision and that court decision restricting your ability to weigh in on false statement cases, I mean, it's the Wild West out there. And I think we just have to do something. So if you have, if you're looking for volunteers, you know, I'll round up some here and, you know, to follow up and see what we can do legislatively to bring back those false statement cases. So thank you for that. The only question I have is, I know in a lot of cases, those things, when you did have the false statements, would then be referred back to the county prosecutors. What was the history of the record of that? Were the county prosecutors serious about, because I know, you know, I had one that went on for like about 7 years before I finally got a call from a county prosecutor say, what do you want to do with this? So I guess how cooperative have the local officials been over the years in following through with things that are recommended or findings by the Ohio Elections Commission?
Chair Stewart, Representative Troy. I think over the years, the commission referred, I think it was approximately 10 matters for prosecution. Generally speaking, it was something that the commission dealt with its own by issuing a letter of reprimand, as the commission was able to do through its rules. It was really a mixed bag. I know that we had a case involving Central Ohio that involved the group that was challenging when Polaris Mall was being built, where the commission made a finding. It was referred for prosecution, and the prosecutor, I believe, got a maximum fine amount out of the organization that made those statements. We also had a case, though, where we made a finding, we sent it along to the prosecutor, and the prosecutor sent us a letter back saying, I'm not going to prosecute this matter. It was really at the once we send it along, it's at the discretion of the prosecutor, and we're really kind of out of the loop. So I think it's fair to say it was a mixed bag when we had those circumstances.
Representative Glassburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Director, I co-sign Representative White's and Troy's desire to see a reinstatement of those principles regarding truth in elections. But a couple other. I'm also concerned about the mentioning of specific cases here. I know that some of the representatives have specifically brought up their own cases, but I am uncomfortable and find it inappropriate for you to be proactively talking about individuals' cases here. But my question is to staffing. You mentioned your retirement. You want to bring someone on. It's not clear to me as to whether your staffing increase is a permanent staffing increase of an additional position or not. Is it?
It would be, excuse me, primarily it would be a person to replace me. And so, you know, at one point, I guess you'd say that would be a temporary person to work with me for a period of time. Then I would leave, and that person would take my position.
Follow up.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. If the General Assembly doesn't want to approve that transition, how much of an increase in the personnel line is needed for inflationary increases, and how much is having the third person?
Chair Stewart, Representative Glassburn. Well, I was looking at getting someone near my current salary as the replacement for me, and then having a carryover period of time before that person then took over. And so I'd say the majority of those funds, I believe, will cover that period of time when there's carryover between the two of us, as well as dealing with any kind of inflationary expectations on the other salaries. You know, the commission member salaries have been set at $25,000 since the commission was created. That's not going to change. And then the other, like I said, I have one staff member, one full-time, one part-time staff member. So I think that those amounts will deal with the commission through the period of time between when there's a mutuality between us and then on into the future.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Byrd.
Thank you, Chair. I think I hear multiple members of this committee expressing concern over an additional $260,000 for a department that has you plus 2 staff members, and I think it's been repeated multiple times. I'm trying to understand. I apologize. I think you've answered around this a little bit, but that additional $260,000 or $63,000, that's for outside legal counsel and to help replace you. Is there something else we're missing here?
Excuse me. Chairman Stewart, Representative Byrd. We're also going to be, I anticipate installing a new electronic filing system that will cost, at least when we got a proposal for it, somewhere between $30,000 and $40,000, and then there'll be, it's like $1,500 a month maintenance fee on into the future. So there's that as well. And when you refer to $260,000, I think right at the moment the commission's budget is approximately $630, something like that. And what we're talking about here is 210, or I mean, sorry, excuse me, 810,000. So it's about $180,000, of which, you know, again, approximately 70 to 80 will deal with either the imposition of the new system and legal fees, and then the remainder is for replacement and other personnel costs.
Follow up?
Yep.
Page 279 of the Blue Book, I'm looking at, and under line 500, personal services. I'm assuming that's human resources. It's going from 572,000 to 835,000, which is over like a 40% change over 2 years. So that's where I was getting those numbers. And so, you know, I mean, I think that's where the questions from the committee are coming from, just concerned that a department of 3 people has such a large personal services salary and benefits cost. Thank you, sir.
Rep. Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Richter, good to see you. I came in late, and I don't know if you touched on this or not, but in the majority of your 23,000 cases that you referenced, how many were based upon someone not closing their school board campaign account, and they forgot to file an ethics statement or something, not ethics, but forgot to close it, they get the letter, they have to go through all this, and how many would you say of that?
Chair Stewart, Representative Young, it's hard to put a specific number on it, obviously, but I'd say that's probably something that consistently occurs, maybe 5,000, 7,000 of those.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's certainly something that regularly occurs. We regularly see people that, especially at the local level, and we try to deal with them appropriately, who will file the waiver and not realize that they have, you know, they've opened a campaign committee and that they have to do something to terminate that committee later on. We see those kind of circumstances on a regular, I'd say on a fairly regular basis.
Follow up, please.
Yes.
So hopefully your new system will be able to alleviate a lot of those situations because they're usually minor. They keep open, like one guy told me $7, you know, but they forgot to close that out. So if that's 5 or 10,000, the other question is, when you do see cases, are the majority of those cases gone against entities that do not file an ethics form?
Chair Stewart, Representative Young. Well, you mentioned an ethics form. It's not an ethics form. Yeah, I mean, it's some sort of report that required to be filed with the Board of Elections. And I know there are some boards that do, I think, a reasonable job of trying to reach out to those persons that work with them to help them understand what they need to file and how they need to file it. That's harder for us to do because we're dealing with things on a statewide basis. But I'm regularly on the phone with persons calling in, asking questions about the filing obligations. And I do my best to try and educate them on what they need to do as it relates to, you know, pre-election, post-election, semi-annual, annual, whatever the case may be, to get those filings made. And then, like I said, I feel like over the years I've established a consistency and approach toward those kind of cases so that you try and deal equitably with people that you know, just haven't closed out their committee. But you know, it is something that just happens because people don't necessarily pay attention and they don't necessarily understand all the intricacies sometimes.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Representative John.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Director, for being here. So in your testimony, you have down 10 commission members comprised of 3 regular Democrats, 3 regular Republicans, 1 independent, and alternate. So there's 3 alternates. And you have them listed as on the payroll. So commission members are being paid, correct?
Chair Stewart, Representative John, yes. Commission members by statute get, the regular commission members get $25,000 a year plus expenses as their pay. The alternates get $150 per day when they attend a meeting.
$25,000 a year. The chair mentioned that there were 18 commission meetings last year, and of the 18, there were 10 where commission members were not present, which I believe has contributed to cases being held up. Yet there's 3 alternates. So we have commission members being paid, we have 3 alternates, and more than 50% of the meetings that were held during last year had commission members absent. Can you explain to me why commission members wouldn't, I don't know, put it on their calendar and do their utmost to attend?
Chair Stewart, Representative John, I wish I had a great answer for that. Circumstances arise. There have been, I know there were at least a couple of circumstances where commission members got sick in the days leading up to the meeting. So I mean, those kind of circumstances arise. I believe that and we try to put our schedule out well in advance so that everybody can have it in advance to make sure that they can attend those meetings. We do our best to do that, but I can't really speak for all the commission members as to why those occurred. I just have to deal with it when they do.
Follow up.
Just a statement, maybe we need to do a better job of getting commission members that are committed to showing up at all of the meetings since there's only 18. Thank you.
Representative Hoops.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, thank you for coming in. There was a case back in around 2008 dealing with All Children Matter. And I remember it being a case where they did some illegal things and they were fined, I think close to $4 or $5 million. I guess my question is, had that ever been received? And if not, what happens to that? Does that just go away, or what occurs?
Chair Stewart, Representative Hoops, one of my favorite things to talk about, obviously. It was, the commission made the decision that it did. You're right. It imposed a substantial fine. Eventually, we sent the matter along to the Attorney General's office for collection. By the time it got that far, the groups that were involved in that had already essentially used up all of their funds, and so there wasn't anything there to really claim. And so, with all due respect, Mr. Attorney General, I'm not trying to throw any kind of shade at the Attorney General's office. They did the best they could, but the groups that were involved in that essentially went out of business. We tried to go after the Attorney General's office, did try to go after the treasurer. The court system struck that down. Don't ask me why, because it's been too long since I've dealt with that situation. And so that sits out there as a noose around the Elections Commission's neck, primarily, because nothing was ever able to be done to collect that full amount.
Thank you.
Other questions from members? One final one from Rep. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, sir. Knowing that you have to schedule meetings, and you might think that you can hear 2 cases in a day, and then the one case bleeds over into the afternoon, and then the next person is sitting there paying their attorney an hourly wage, seeing this accumulate, and sometimes they don't even get heard. I'm posing this to you because it doesn't happen just once. It happens on multiple occasions, or one of the members has a hard stop because they want to go see their kid play a basketball game. That has happened, or was it a baseball game? I can't remember. That has happened. What can you do? What kind of best practices can we help you with to make sure that people are not unduly financially hit when they have to go before you because the commissioners themselves want to do something else besides hearing cases and having cases bleed over the scheduling? Do you see any way that you can make it more efficient, and that once they're there, they have to be there until everybody is heard?
Chair Stewart, Representative Smith, I will, certainly there have been a lot of concerns expressed during this process here that I will bring back to all my commission members and let them know what the nature of the conversation, what the nature of the discussion was here in order to make sure they are aware of the obligation that they have to attend and complete meetings. And I promise that I will do that to the best of my ability.
Thank you, Director. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Commission members, we're hearing from the Elections Commission at the beginning of the day in full finance because I'm going to take my own medicine. I don't want to hide any balls about what we're trying to do here. There's a lot of concerns been expressed. I have grave concerns about the ability of this commission to continue to have hearings. I think, doing these preliminary reviews may be one thing, but this process, in my view, is substantially broken. And I think we have an opportunity here with a staffing change to make some real reforms. And I hope that I'm getting texts and calls here from other members saying this is the time to make some reforms. And I hope we do that as part of this process. Our next witness is going to be, I believe, Attorney General Dave Yost.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Stewart, Vice Chair Davila, Ranking Member Sweeney, members of the House Finance Committee. Having just sat through the last 45 minutes, I'm going to take 30 seconds of personal privilege and observe that in my long experience and since the 2014 Supreme Court decision, the Ohio Elections Commission has outlived its usefulness, and that those functions could easily be devolved upon the local boards of education, where people would not have to travel to the capital city for a determination of what are essentially minor matters that are left to the commission's discretion.